Welcome students of Form 3 in this first video of 3 videos about the structure of government. So we talked about the functions of government, and now we're going to talk about the structure of government and specifically about legislature. Legislature means the law, a lei. Everything that has to do with the law. We're going to talk about the structure of government, and then we're going to talk later on about the executive and later on about judiciary. But now we're going to have 3 videos about legislature. So the part of government that writes and creates the law. We can talk about that. Again, if you are watching this from another part of the Caribbean, I comply and base my talking points in this video about everything that the CXC provides for me in the so-called syllabus. So if you're watching this from Saba or St. Martin or Statia or Jamaica or Barbados or elsewhere in the Caribbean, this video is also helpful for you. And the goal of this video, actually these 3 videos, is describe. So that's the learning verb. The learning verb is describe the structure of government. And we're now talking about one structure being the legislature. Yeah, legislative means law, and legislature means that part of government that creates laws, amends laws, like adapts laws, or creates new initiatives to write new laws because our society is changing all the time. So we're talking now about the legislature, that part of government that writes the law. Let's look at the text. Yeah, take your book in front of you. And when you take the book in front of you, your so-called study guide, yeah, you take in front of you actually page, oh, page 40, I believe. Yeah, page 40. Page 40, it looks roughly like this. The structure of government, the legislature. You should be able to see here. Yeah, and the first part you see also on this page over here, and there's also the text that you see there is the text I copied also over here on this PowerPoint. So let's look. The different branches. So government is like a tree. It has different branches of government are the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. So the government has branches, 3 main ones, legislature, executive, and judiciary, and those branches are separated from each other for a reason. Each branch of government, so legislature, judiciary, and executive, should, very important when we have a good government, function independently from the others. This is really important. So it should function independent, separated, separa, independiente, by otro non, and each should also act as a check on the others. So to check each other. So you don't have just one government. The government is divided into 3 parts: judiciary, executive, and legislature, and they should check each other, and they should be separated from each other. That's really important. And to achieve this and to avoid, so here you see this in the picture. I went too fast. So in this picture, you see those 3 branches. This branch being the judiciary. No, this actually being the legislature. This branch being the executive. Right now, Prime Minister, Mr. Gilmar Pisas. And you also have the judiciary. And right now, in this video, we are talking about the legislature. So that should be this one, this legislature. So it looks a bit like a parliament. Yeah, and this again is the executive, and this is the judiciary, Cas de Corte, in Corsa. So to achieve this and to avoid corruption or abuse, you could also say it like that, we have different things in society that prevent these things actually from happening. So achieve that they check each other, to achieve that they are independent, the constitutions of Commonwealth Caribbean countries. So perhaps you know, perhaps you don't know, we are following the CSEC program. The CSEC has a lot to do with CARICOM and the Greater Caribbean islands. And the most countries in the Commonwealth Caribbean, if not all, have constitutions. Dan sta je misschien lei fundamentaal. Grondwet in Hollands, grondwet in Dutch. And the constitution is the most important law in a country. And they operate the principle of, and this is really, really, really important, they operate the principle of, they apply the principle of separation of powers. It's a really important concept, separation of powers. So the government has a lot of powers, but those powers are not located in one person, but they are separated from each other into, what was the word we used again? Branches. So those different powers of the government are separated into different branches. And this separation is called separation of powers. I also underscored it and put two rather large arrows there. So you have to see it. This is a really important concept because its goal is to prevent abuse, to avoid abuse, prevenir abusa. Yeah. Y nos thing for is key we have for this, we have the so-called separation of powers. Nos thing is separa e poderna. And what does it do? So we have to prevent the abuse of power, abusa di poder, para prevenir is the key. We have the separation of powers because in the past, way back, like 200 or 300 years ago, we had a lot of kings in Europe and in the Caribbean and even in South America and even in North America. And rather often they abused their powers. And then 200 years ago, perhaps even 300 years ago, there were thinkers, philosophers, who said, we don't want this anymore, and we want the separation of power to prevent kings and emperors and other very bossy people to abuse their power in the future. Which, yeah, this is a constitution. They write it down there. Powers are separated. It's like a written document. Yeah, like you can see here, a very official document. And they write down the idea of separation of powers to prevent the abuse of power, corruption, using the taxes, using the belasting, using the impuesto to become richer by yourself. And to prevent this, not from having this, we have the separation of powers, which divides, separates, separa, the powers, e podernan di gobierno, between the three branches. Do you remember them? One being the judiciary, two being the executive, and three being the judiciary. Yeah? Well, here for a little moment of Dora, and now we continue. Yeah, so to avoid abuse, avoid corruption, yeah, people using the money from the taxes and becoming richer themselves, we have thought of, we have created the idea of separation of powers, and we also wrote this down in our constitutions, like you can see here. What is then exactly the legislature? And we're talking now mainly about the Commonwealth Caribbean because in the Dutch Caribbean and in the Dutch Kingdom, it's a bit different. But a lot of countries in the Caribbean, at least half of them, perhaps even more, they are part of the Commonwealth Caribbean, and that is the Caribbean still connected with Great Britain, also known as England, and also the British King, King Charles III. So, composition of Parliament. Who is in Parliament? How does it work? How do the people that are in Parliament get their seats? Well, in a bicameral legislature, so two parts, two houses, you could say. So two parts of a legislature, two parts that make the law. Members of the Senate or upper house are senators who are nominated. So they are appointed by a higher power, often by the governor. They are not elected. This is really important. So the people cannot choose these people. Yeah, they are nominated by a higher power, for instance, the governor or the king in Britain. And it consists of independent senators. They are not joined with a political party, and they are nominated, in this case, by the head of state. The head of state, in the case of the Commonwealth Caribbean, is King Charles III right now. Like 5 years ago, perhaps you remember, his mother Elizabeth II died, and then he became king. We have also government senators, and they are appointed. They are appointed by the prime minister. Like in our case, that would be Gilmar Pisas, but our parliament doesn't work like that. And third, we have nominated senators, and they are nominated by the leaders of the opposition, those political parties that are not in government. Yeah? And again, nominated by a higher power. That's a pretty important word. Nominated means not elected by the people. Yeah, like we said here, they're nominated, appointed by a higher power. Yeah, like we can see here. But this all we don't have that in Curacao actually. Yeah, we don't have that here. And independent senators are so-called independent because they do not present a political party. So when you see here independent, they're not representatives of like here MFK or MANPIN or PAR or other political parties. They represent particular interests. They are chosen by or elected by higher authorities, and they represent, for instance, they have a lot of knowledge about business or education or other particular interests, meaning things that are important for people in the country. And that's why they are independent, and because of their know-how, the things they know, they are elected into the parliament. Yeah. Okay. Where there is a prime minister, he or she is able to nominate a majority of senators. So in the Commonwealth Caribbean, when you have a prime minister, like with us, Gilmar Pisas, but here it works differently, he can nominate the most of the senators, in mayoria. This means that the government will have the majority of votes in the Senate, and the government will also have, and this is the same in Curacao, a majority in the House of Representatives. The government, MFK, as you know, has a majority in the Parliament of Curacao. Yeah, so majority. Which words do we see here, when I remember correctly? So majority is very important in a parliament because with the majority you can form a government. It's really important. And the Senate is really important. Bicameral House. So you have the Senate and you have the House of Representatives. Majority would be in Papiamento Maioria. So if you have like here in Curacao, you have 21 seats in parliament. The majority would be half. That will be 10 and a half. You cannot have half a person. So they make 11 out of it. 11 or more would be the majority in parliament. Yeah, House of Representatives and so on. So we've come at the end of this video, and you should be able to roughly describe the structure of parliament called legislature, because that we talked about now. So in this video, we talked about legislature. And again, in the corner above me, you see, hey, this is CXC. So if you watch this from outside of Curacao, you can also watch this video. And we now talked about legislature. If you have questions, ask them below. If you want to subscribe, you could probably also do that below. And a second video is coming somewhere tomorrow or next week, and it will also be a video about legislature, so the place in the democracies of the Commonwealth Caribbean, part of Britain, where they make the laws. Questions, always open to them, ask them below. For now, perhaps I'll see you during class, or perhaps you have break coming up and enjoy your break. Please, if you didn't understand things, ask a question during class or ask them below by posting a message. Enjoy your day.